cockpit of the F-111. Obviously the navigator sits in the right-hand seat with the pilot in the left, and then we go flying.
The F-111 is a masterpiece of jet bomber design. First flown in the 1960s, it still holds records for high-speed, low-level bombing. By sweeping its wings back in flight, the F-111 hits 3,000 kilometers an hour. It can carry 14 tons of bombs, more than half its own weight, to targets more than 2,000 kilometers away. Onboard radar scans the terrain, allowing high-speed attack from 50 meters above the ground, beneath enemy radar. The F-111 can dump and ignite fuel with the afterburners. The spectacular display can light up a city. For many aircrew, flying the F-111 is a career highlight. But these extreme war machines can be fickle, and sometimes things go wrong in the air. March 2006, an F-111 loses a wheel on takeoff. On board, a pilot, Peter Komar, and Air Combat Officer, Luke Warner.
We double-checked with air traffic. They informed us, unfortunately, that it was the entire wheel, including the whole rim, the brake mechanism, everything. So the left-hand side, all we had was a stub.
With no landing gear, surviving this flight will need much more than good luck. When the F-111 crew did pre-flight checks, they had no idea they were about to confront a life-threatening emergency.
We started the jet up as per normal, checked in with the other members of the formation, and then proceeded to taxi out to prepare for takeoff. We powered up, full afterburner, and rolled down the runway and got airborne, all as per normal. And then we get a very distinct call from air traffic control that our wheel has fallen off, which was quite surreal in the circumstances.
It was actually very fortunate that people did see that wheel fall off. If not, we would have returned to the airfield and tried to land without any idea that we had no wheel on the left-hand side.
With the stricken jet circling the airbase, F-111 pilots at squadron headquarters scrambled to devise a plan to save the crew and the aircraft.
We've set ourselves up in this area around here. We've got 12 people directly working to help this crew get down. Our first job is to look at the flight manual, figure out what it tells us to do with this particular emergency. As we've gone through the flight manual, it's very quickly become evident that at no stage in the past has an F-111 had a main wheel detach itself from the airframe. We're in no man's land.
To make things worse, the young pilot has landed an F-111 only a handful of times.
It does invoke some fear, most definitely. I think anybody in that position would have gone through the emotions that both Luke and myself did.
I'm not going to lie to you, I was scared. I was pretty nervous, and I mean, you think some pretty dark thoughts, and you think, oh God, I wish I'd finally done that will amendment that I meant to do a couple of years ago.
While we're doing this, in the background, we knew of the existence of a 3/4-inch pneumatic tape of a United States Air Force aircraft landing without its main wheels. The guys over at Tech Training Flight burnt that onto a CD for us, so we now had some pictures, some idea of how to land an aeroplane, at least without the main wheels.
Ejecting from the plane is ruled out. It's always the last resort. The decision to go for a belly landing without wheels.
We then proceeded to have a couple of goes without the hook down, so just low flying, right on top of the runway there, trying to get as low as we can to get a feel for it. We needed to get down around the sort of 10 or 11, preferably maybe 7 or 6 feet. Finally, we decided that we're down to a position now where we needed to have a go with the hook down.
The F-111 has a retractable hook under its tail, which grabs a brake line on the runway if a high-speed takeoff is aborted. Maybe the hook will slow down the incoming jet.
We didn't get low enough on that first one and set up again for another go. We actually felt the cable dragging in the dirt. We could actually feel it make contact. We'd skidded to a halt. We knew we had to get away from the jet because obviously there's a risk of fire. There's plenty of metal in contact with the runway. We had about 3,000 litres of fuel, which is pretty explosive, sitting on board. In fact, just sort of behind us here, and some big fuel tanks. So we didn't want to be around with the potential of that catching on fire.
Absolutely stoked and rapt to have pretty much walked away from the situation with not a scratch. So yeah, very, very, very happy.
At the end of the day, one of the most inexperienced F-111 pilots made a copybook ending of an abnormal situation that nobody had ever seen before. That in itself is absolute proof that our training, the people we've got in place, are spot on.
A peacetime emergency becomes one more team training drill. For Australian F-111 crews,